Hello and welcome back to the Racing Postcast, proudly sponsored by Unibet. We have 3 top tracks in action this weekend with a theme of rematches across the brilliant card on Saturday. We start at Ascot. We've got Ascot Chase, one of the big highlights of the season there, where Pic D'Orhy and L'Homme Presse clash again in the Grade 1, but there's also quite a strong Irish challenge. We'll be dissecting that race as well as 4 others live on ITV on Saturday, including a Reynoldstown, which could have some key pointers towards the Cheltenham Festival. We'll then head to Haydock. We've got the Grand National Trial, a real mud-loving race, and we've got the first 2 home from the Welsh Grand National. We're going to lock horns again. We'll see what the panel think of that race, as well as races like the Reynoldstown there. We'll be heading to Wincanton for the Kingwell hurdle, where Burdett Road is also among 4 runners there. Plenty to get through, but before we do, it's that time of the show. Do make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Don't miss any of it as we build up towards the Cheltenham Festival. Let's get stuck in to our first meeting of the weekend. We're going to be going to Ascot first, a really good competitive card, some good handicaps, a bit of quality first. And we're going to start in the 115 at Ascot. This is the best odds on the Betfair Exchange handicap hurdle. I haven't got live prices in for this race, but we'll hear some of the selections from you guys otherwise. Robbie, what do you like here?
Good afternoon, James. I'm quite interested in Bective Agby for Nicky Henderson. He's obviously got a bit of a reputation, this horse. He won a point-to-point by a wide margin before joining Nicky, and then he's gone on 6-5 favourite in a Doncaster novice hurdle in a race that the yard also had Lucky Place in, and now Lucky Place has obviously gone on to good things. He's considered a Stayers hurdle dark horse. But he reportedly finished sore that day. Can't have been his true running. He didn't come out and won a Warwick maiden hurdle quite easily in the summer. He's clearly been slightly fragile, but I mean, there's a chance he could be very well treated off 114. So I thought he was the most interesting one for me.
Okay, Bective Agby for Robbie in the 115. Ed?
Yeah, tricky race to start proceedings off on. It's a handicap hurdle at Ascot with 17 runners. The maximum is 18 there, so it's a real competitive race. We're going extra place, and I must admit, 5 of the field won last time out. Robbie made a good case for Be Active Abbey, Nicky Henderson, Nico de Boinville. That blog will drop on Friday, so it'd be interesting to hear what he has to say about him. He's one of 5 last time out winners, albeit last season for him. And my eye was drawn to another one, Hardy Fella. Harry Cobden for Emma Lavelle. Really interesting jockey booking. I think they're at 27% overall. They haven't really been together for that long. I think 27 runners altogether, of which he's won plenty. This season alone, he's won 4 from 12 for Emma. So it seems to be a new kind of association. Last time out, Hardy Fella was ridden by Ben Jones. It was Ben's 50th winner of the season, actually, when he won at Market Raisin. Staying on stoutly in the closing stages over a similar trip, similar ground conditions. And he's still well handicapped if you look at some of the bits and bobs before, especially over fences. I think he's rated 120 over fences, 117 over hurdles, up 5 for that performance. Just thought that jockey booking was really interesting. So, yeah, and in what is a competitive race, each way, the extra place available with Unibet is going to be a Hardy Fella, who's available around about 10-1 at the moment, James.
Perfect. And no bet from Keith here in the opener, but I'm sure he's got plenty more to do with some of those big staying handicaps. You know, Keith loves to get stuck into them. Let's move on to the 150, a top quality race. Only the 5 runners in the Ebony Horse Club Reynoldstown Novices Chase. But we've got some clues towards the Cheltenham Festival. The favourite here is Ginkgo Blue, who's 20-1 for the Brown Advisory. Lowry's Bar's in this race. He's 12-1 for the Ultimate, also got Brown Advisory entry. So we're going to get a few clues here. We'll just spin through the market before we get stuck into some selections. Ginkgo Blue is 6-5 favourite. Lowry's Bar at 2s. The Changing Man, been so unlucky for so long, it seems. When he finally get his big day, we know the Tizzards have a good record in this race. He's 7-1. Peaky Blue, first start for New Connections after his sale at 8-1, and Leave of Absence at 25. Let's get you involved, Keith. What do we like in the Reynoldstown?
I honestly think in this race that if you swap the yards or the reputations, that you swap the prices on the top 2. Ginkgo Blue, they ran Windsor last time against each other. I thought that Lowry's Bar had him in a real spot of bother, actually, until he just walked through the third last. And after that, that was a decisive point in the race, really. Apart from that, they were quite closely matched. Directly because of that result, Jinko Blue carries a £5 penalty. They were off levels at Windsor. So immediately there's a £5 swing. Take out the actual circumstance of the race. Lowry's Bar is already in front. He's also the more natural 3-mile chaser of the two, to my mind. He's certainly bred to be a 3-mile chaser. And he's becoming the sort of poster boy for this little mini Hobbs revival we've been seeing this season, which has been very welcome. He's probably gone ahead of Imperial Saint now because of the way he enhanced his reputation at Windsor. Not that you'd know it from the prices. I think those prices are way out. I would expect them to actually right themselves a little bit between now and racing, because at 6-5 Jinko Blue and 2-1 Lowry's Bar is by far the better bet.
Ed touched on the market there. Keith mentioning Lowry's Bar perhaps could be the one to side. We might get shorter. How do you assess it? And do you think there'll be any movement in the market?
Exactly the same as Keith. I'd written down almost exactly what he said. I think Lowry's Bar should be favourite. Based upon that performance, if you're looking at the form in the book, Keith's already mentioned why, but also the way the race was run and that mistake at the third last. I've just watched it a couple of times this morning before coming on, and I mean, he was going better than Jingo Blue. I know you're basing it on jockeys and what the jockeys are showing you visually, but the Racing Post Spotlight, and I read it, said travelling well, if not slightly better than Jinko Blue 3 out. And I actually backed Lowry's Bar that day, so I was watching the race with keen interest, and I must admit I thought he was going better. I think they'll be much nearer each other in the betting. I think Keith, as betting editor, you'd expect him to get it right, but I think he's absolutely right here. And what a race this race is, the Reynoldstown. I mean, the Reynoldstown, I'm disappointed it's a grade 2 now. It used to be grade 1 when I used to go on a Wednesday afternoon at Ascot and watch the race, and I was just working out, when did one man win it? Because I went 31 years ago in 1994 when one man won it on a Wednesday. And Little Al won it in 1980. O'Phelan's Boy has won it as well. But it's not as good a race as it used to be. But it still looks like a decent renewal this year. So I'm going to go for Lowry's Bar, same as Keith. A quick mention of Peaky Boy, sorry. I was talking to Nicky before he was sold out of the stable, although I don't think they wanted him to be sold out of the stable. And he was always thinking he was more of a 2.5 miler. I said about 2.5 miles and going up to 3. And I think he was looking forward to putting him over 3 eventually, but he very much saw him as a 2.5 miler. So that's interesting. First time 3 miles for John Joe and AJ. And they obviously paid a pretty penny for him. So, yeah, it's still an interesting race, but not as good as it used to be.
Sure. Jinko Blue or Lowry's Bar, in fact, and mentioned the Brown Advisory. O'Phelan's Boy was the last to do the double, win this and that at 2014. You mentioned the price as well. So we're 6-5, 15-8 roughly on Jinko Blue, Lowry's Bar. Perhaps Lowry's Bar is going to be a bit shorter. Robbie, do you agree with the two chaps?
So my natural instinct, first of all, was to think that Lowry's Bar was probably the bet because, like the fellas say, I mean, if he didn't get that jump wrong near the end, then it would have been quite interesting. But I don't know. I did think that Jinko Blue still, he wasn't all out to win that. I mean, we don't know exactly what would have happened, but I thought he still had a little bit left at the end, and he sort of had a few less tries over fences. I don't know. I thought maybe he's open to a bit more improvement. So I thought Jinko Blue, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if Lowry's Bar reversed that form with a clean round. It's not a betting race, but I just wonder if Jinko Blue might be the better long-term prospect.
Move on to the 225 at Ascot. This is the Betfair Exchange Handicap Hurdle. Competitive looking handicap this. We've got Altobelli, of course, a brilliant winner at Ascot's last meeting. He's one of the leading fancies. But the money this morning has come for the Skelton runner, Joya Machan, who is 4-1. Altobelli 9-2 in some places, 7-2 some. Patriotic at 15-2. Classic King at 15-2. Country Park and Right So Tom at 12s. We'll go straight back to you, Robbie. You got a strong view on this one?
Yeah, I tipped Altobelli and back to Altobelli and Joy Machan earlier in the week. I like that position still. I think one of those is going to win it, to be honest. Altobelli, he's come out and won the corresponding race here about a month ago. I thought he won it with a bit in hand in first-time cheap pieces. They're still on. He's always looked like he'd benefit for this 2.5 mile trip, and he did exactly that. He's only up £5. And then Joy Machan, who could go off potentially a fair bit shorter, I think. He was such a massive eye catcher at Wetherby last time. Caught the eye of the stewards that day. He's been working his way back to form since joining Dan Skelton. You'd have thought Skelton had his eye on this decent prize worth 26 grand to the winner. He's just well handicapped on his Irish form for Paul Nolan, basically, and his best performance by far came on quite decent ground, and this will be slightly quicker ground he's been racing on lately, so I think he's probably the one out of the two, but it surprised me if one of those two didn't win.
And in a good position, as you mentioned there, from your anti-postman earlier in the week. Good plug for that. Hopefully that does you good luck on the weekend with that one. Keith?
Yeah, it's obviously I'm more interested generally in the chasers that we're putting up, but there's actually a really interesting chaser in this field that has gone a bit unnoticed, and I just can't believe the price of Classic King. He won at Doncaster over fences. The turn of pace he showed after missing the last to Reel and I'm Ravenous was really quite something. And then he was back at Donny last time over hurdles. They omitted all the hurdles in the straight that day, so it was a real bunched finish. He beat the second by further than the second beat the sixth. He's got a really, really good change of gear for a horse at this level. The slight niggle is whether, is that weapon best used at Ascot's hurdles course, where you really do need to hang tough? That's a slight niggle. Tactical speed is rarely a bad thing. And Classic King just looks like a horse finding his level, and that weapon's really quite appealing to me. I'm going to have stronger bets today, but this is a generally interesting horse, and I think the price is a bit of an outlier, to be honest.
Classic King for Keith, and finishes off, Ed.
Yeah, no, I really fancy Classic King. I think he's too big a price. As Keith said, I was going to say I can't see him being bigger than 12 to 1 on the day, but probably by the time the podcast comes out, it'll probably be bigger. But I thought he was good price. I know the owners quite well, Will and Tom Davis. Tom owned owned a quarter share in the 2006 1,000 Guineas winner, Speciosa, from Pam Sly. And they've liked this horse for a long time. They've always thought it was going to be a chaser. He's had 4 chase runs. I think it's fair to say he hasn't fallen in love with the game. It tends to belt one, make a mistake, as those 2 U's in his form line suggest. So they reverted to hurdles, gone back to it, and I think they think a lot of this horse. He's very highly regarded, and I hope that for the Davis' sake that it runs well. There's a dream to run at Cheltenham in the Coral Cup, but this race is definitely winnable. And I thought on the better ground, and that's the one thing I think we're going to have to work out what Ascot's going to be on Saturday. I think it will be better ground than we've been seeing in the recent weeks. And Classic King will definitely like the better ground. The horses that Robbie's mentioned are the one towards the top end of the market. They have got form on better ground, but they've also shown form on heavy ground. Whereas this horse definitely shows better form on good ground and good to soft ground. I thought he'd got a really good chance. He's only up £5 for that win last time out. Still relatively lightly raced. So, yeah, Emma Lavelle stable in great form as well. She's got a very good strike rate at the present time over the last 14 days. So there's a lot of positives for Classic King in what is a competitive race. We are going extra place in this race at Unibet, as well as you can also get money back second or third in this race, which just highlights how difficult the race is. 2 offers that you can choose from. But I'm all in on Classic King.
Yeah, some fascinating insight, potentially the Coral Cup on the cards. Should also say, we're talking about the ground. It is time recording on Thursday afternoon. We're looking at conditions today. So plenty could change, but good to see the right hand of our screen. I seem to be copying notes on their selections to see how that pans out for the rest of the show. As we move on to the third race at Ascot, we're into the 3 o'clock at Ascot, the Betfair Swinley Handicap Chase, where last year's winner 300 through 5 heads the weight, but he doesn't head the betting. That is led, of course, by Victorino, who's 3 from 4 at Ascot. One to really follow there. Hashfing, winner at Windsor last time. Teresita, course winner, of course, at Ascot earlier last month, should I say. Snipe at 8 to 1, and Sam, a bit of money for him at 8 to 1. And then at 10 to 1, we've got 300 through 5, last year's winner of the race. Keith, we know you love these big handicap chases. Take us away.
This is race of the day, I think. It is a really good race. The favourites aren't so full of holes that you're desperate to get them beat. Victorino, very interesting horse, good at Ascot. Maybe a little bit funny. Hash thing, I'm testing out the theory we talked about Windsor form in the Reynoldstown. I think the way that chases certainly pan out at Windsor are going to be very different to how chases pan out at Ascot. And Terrace is an interesting horse, couldn't rule out. But it's one of those races that it's so competitive. You're not backing anything at 3-1. There's nothing in this race that's a true 3-1 shot. So I came quite close to 3 under through 5. I may yet have a little saver on him. He was plainly not fit when he ran a nice race here in December on his reappearance. You'd imagine this has been sort of the race for him, especially given it. Yeah. So I thought he was, but the one that really has caught my eye and I cannot shake off, and I have already backed, albeit with a firm that's not been as quick to be aversive as Unibet. They've been quick to put him into 8s. Some haven't been so quick. That's Ansam. He's won one of these big races here before over 3 miles. There's a lot of these 3 mile Premier handicaps at Ascot. He's won one already. He's generally a horse that wants to go right-handed and to be bounced out. Whereas, and he might get that chance today. He missed last season. They've worked him back gradually. When he ran here last time, he didn't get the sort of forceful ride that serves him best. So I think that was maybe a little bit of a means to an end, if I'm quite honest. I've backed Ansam already. I will back him again if they bounce him out, because that's the key to this horse. And I think he is double figures, which is still a little bit available, but even 8-1's a good price. I think he's a good bet. Confident
selection on Ansam. Robbie?
Yeah, love this race. Largely agree with a lot of Keith's analysis. So I wanted to ask you actually, Keith, high stakes player, one of your horses to follow this season. Are you giving up on him?
He has sort of, I've got a phrase I can't utter on. He has sort of blotted his copybook, we'll say, instead, the last couple of times. I also noticed in this race, he got declared very late. Tom Lacey had already put in Nocte Volatus at Haydock and made a lot of his Saturday declarations, and he left this one very late, which I don't think that's a good sign normally, especially with a horse that probably has had his issues. Wasn't his target going to be the old Racing Post Chase as well? And so why is he running here a week or two earlier? There's just a lot of little niggles putting me off. He's a talented horse, but remember last season they barely got a go at racing with him because he's so fragile. He's just not a horse you keep following and following and following. He's a sort of horse you jump off quite quickly, I think. And so even though I was dead keen on him, and that Chianti Classical form here is really strong, there's just a lot of little niggles.
Yeah, I do see what you mean. I was drawn to him initially because if he replicates that Chianti Classico run, he's got a massive chance. And I'll probably rule out the Newbury run because he's better going right-handed. He was just a bit flat at Kempton. And David Bass's Stan Shepherd's at Haydock. So basically talking about horse, I'm not going to back it. I get the Ansam point completely. He was held up last time. That's not the way he wants to be ridden. If he does go forwards, then yeah, interesting. I thought Snipe was quite solid as well at an all right price. He keeps getting placed.
Why is he running? Sorry, a question for you now, Rob. Why is he running here rather than Haydock? He was Antipo's favourite for the Haydock race last year.
Would it be? Yeah, I don't know if he wants a proper 3.5 miles though. I don't know. Maybe it's
probably is that.
But I thought he was interested in being held up in a race like that at Doncaster, the Great Yorkshire Chase. It's quite difficult to win like that. I prefer those tactics at Ascot. He'll come from, as long as they go hard, I think he's got a shout of getting in the frame. A lot of his form lines are reading quite well. Obviously, he gave Val Dancer a bit of a race at Carlisle, came out and won the Welsh National. I just thought he was interesting, but I do agree with Kit. There are a lot of potential winners here, and it's not a race you want to be taking short odds about.
Cracking race, and interested in a debate between you two, and especially your thoughts, Keith, about declaring late. That's such an interesting angle, and fascinating to see how all three get on with a view to those future big races, and as you say, the big one at Kempton next week as well. Finish us off, Ed.
Yeah, interesting race. I haven't really got a really positive word for anything here. I think Keith's mentioned it. It's a race that you probably want to take a big price on, but the selection would be Victorino, given his course form. Slightly worried about the ground. As we said earlier on, think it might be a bit faster than he needs, so we'll be looking out for that. But he's got a good record, and he won a race last time out that last year he won. And both times, having won that race, he's come back here for this race. But the difference being, last year he had a race in between, and came fourth here as favourite. Maybe Venetia's decided that he kind of needs spaced out runs a little bit more, and that would give him a better chance. His handicap rating hasn't seemed to have gone up that much. Although he's won some big races, he's still around 144, anything between 138 and 146, and he's off 146 today. So Victorino will be my selection, but it will be a cracking race to watch, and that's what I'll be doing. I won't be having a bet.
We move on from one cracker to another. This is the big race of the day, the Grade 1, the 3:37, the Betfair Ascot Chase, where it's a rematch between Pictory and L'Homme Presse, but of course with that really strong Irish challenge in this season. Fascinating contest. Good clues for Cheltenham Festival, but a fantastic race in its own right. Let's just have a quick spin through the betting, which has been fascinating through the week. Ed, we'll come to you first once we've done that. Just get a glimpse of what's the market has been telling us. We've got currently Pictory as your 2-1 favourite, joint 2-1 favourite with Corbetts Cross. L'Homme Presse at 5-2, Le Patron, David Noonan, the man who guided him to that shock win in the Grade 1 all those years ago in the Henry VIII. He's back on board. Perhaps that's going to be a good sign for Le Patron. Willie Mullins has never won this race. Blue Lord up to 20s and Phlegmatic at 66 some places. He's 100-1. Ed, what's the market been saying this week? We know Pictory has been so good at Ascot. This is his track. This is his day. Paul Nicholls loves to target this race. But L'Homme Presse has got that bit of star quality. What's the market's been saying, and what do you think here?
I think the market's been saying, what's the ground going to be? Because it seems to me that the soft ground horses have been drifting a little bit, and Pictory, who we know goes better on better ground, he's 6 from 8 on good ground. He's got much less. Hasn't got such good record when the ground is softer. He's as you say, 7-4, 2-1, but he has drifted as well. Pictory.
Ed, were you one of the firms? Sorry, were you one of the firms that went sort of evens-ish early in the week?
I think we went that kind of price early in the week. Yeah, we were. He has been drifting. I don't think the market. I don't know, Keith, but in this situation where there are horses with soft ground records, and the grounds is so key, as you know, to not just who's going to win, but the way the betting goes. It's been difficult for the betting market to understand. So as nearer the day, you'll understand, and the ground will come into it. And Pictory, if it's good ground, will be shorter than 2-1. I would have thought, because as I say, the other ones. I mean, Corbetts Cross to me looks like a. Don't know what you think, but he looks like he needs a bit of cutting the ground. L'Homme Presse, we know, stays and gets through the mud. The class horses, Pictory at Ascot, I think 4 from 8, run well in this race a couple of years, the last couple of seasons. I would expect him to go off favourite and shorter than 2-1 if the going is good, and it could be my selection. But it's that ground is all important. It really is.
Yeah, Paul Nicholls bidding for a 6th win in this race, record extending, and his first Grade 1 since this race last year. How do you assess his chances, Keith Pictory? He's pretty rock solid, but it's fair to say Paul Nicholls' yard have not been the most reliable to follow this season.
Well, you say rock solid. This is the thing, James. When the firms went 11-10 on Monday, Robbie and I have like a sort of internal chat with like Graham Rodway and a few other tipping guys. We all looked at it and went, "Oh, we're desperate to get Pictory beat here at 11-10, lads." And the reason for that is the Melling Chase, he completely blobbed. That is most unlike this horse these days. Since he got his jumping sorted over fences, he has been, you could say, your watch by him. And he doesn't do that, and he did in the Melling Chase. And then he came back in the 1965 Chase. We opposed him then. And yes, he won. But the Racing Post rating that day tells you the story. 148. That might get you third in the Rendlesham today. That's nowhere near his best. He made a real meal of beating proper ordinary handicappers, certainly in the context of graded chases. So yeah, I'm here to get him beat, and I was, and maybe even though he's drifted out to 2-1 now, I'm still a little bit thinking I want to get him beat because of maybe that old price. There's just a chance that he's not here. He's not the horse that he was this season. You know how many on or similar horses are having a bit of a time where they're not showing their old form, and it's going to happen to him eventually. So yeah, I mean, and it's a tough race as well because L'Homme Presse is the class horse in the field, but he's never going to be as good going right-handed, and I think he's, if anything, getting a little bit slower as he gets older. So he's not going to run necessarily any better than he did last year when Pictory had his number. So I've come down a little bit on Corbetts Cross. I'm here mainly to get Pictory beat, and he's a sort of one. He was 5-1 on Monday when I priced it up, and he's very quickly corrected that. I always thought he was a little bit flattered in the bowl, Corbetts Cross, which is why I was against him in the King George. But the reason he was flattered in the bowl is because the emphasis was on speed. This horse isn't as slow as you'd think. He's won a national hunt chase over 3 miles 6, but he isn't slow like that. He was last off the bridle in a bowl where they finished fast, with Jerry Coulomb and Ahoy Senior in there, 2 classy animals. I think that's the key to this. I think he'll be absolutely fine and under these conditions as a result, and at this sharper trip. And I think Robbie might be coming in to talk about another horse, but I think the strand that joins us is I really want to question this pick Doherty's bomb-proof theory after the last couple of runs, and I think that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to choose to do it with Corbetts Cross.
Yeah, I like the idea of you guys on a Monday, just sort of almost like the Traitor's Tower, just sort of up there, sort of scheming which favourite you're going to try and get beat, and it's Pic D'Orhy that you're going to take on with Corbetts Cross, who, of course, Robbie, Mark Walsh is coming over the ride. He's just one win at Ascot. That came in this race 2 years ago. He's 3 from 6, riding in Britain for the last 5 years when it's not Cheltenham and Aintree.
Yeah, so I was almost spat my water out seeing Pic D'Orhy's price at 11 to 10 at the start of the week, because I think this horse might be done completely. And he was totally flattered to win this last year, I thought. The riders let themselves down in that race last year, with the greatest respect to Charlie Deutsch and Derek Fox. They just gave him an easy run through. They're not going to let him do that again, surely. That's my real concern about Corbetts Cross, because he does get held up. And if he just sits out the back and they go really slow, he might be in a spot of bother. But I do think, like he says, he's quicker than people give him credit for. He had the speed to beat Founder 50, who's second in an arc over less than 2 miles at Navan. He's not slow, even though he's won a national chase. I'm not too concerned about the ground with him. You keep going around in a circle. I just thought Blue Lord might be worth a little bit, a massive price, just because, we are guessing as to how much ability he retains, but in his peak form, he was nearly a 170 horse for Willie Mullins a couple of years ago, dotted up at the Dublin Race Festival by 11 lengths from Captain Guinness on yielding ground. I don't know. I think he needs 2.5 miles now. He's running over 2. He's had a very stop-start last couple of years, but on his form from 18 months to 2 years ago, he's definitely not a 20-to-1 shot. And I think he'd be the way I'm looking. But I think my main selection is going to be Place Lay Pic D'Orhy. I think he's done.
Okay, bold shout. Just before we move on to Wincanton and Haydock, chaps, Corbetts Cross 11 to 1 for the Gold Cup of Unibet. L'Homme Presse 14s. Any interest in an each way perspective taken on Galop and Deschamps with either of those two?
I'm a bit of a sucker for L'Homme Presse. It's all each way against him. Graham Rodway's very keen on Corbetts Cross. Thinks he's the only horse that's yet to basically be shown up as not in Galopin's league. And while I've got some sympathy with the case, I think looking for horses in Galopin Deschamps' league, you use a calendar, not a stopwatch to find horses like that. So, we've got... I don't do an awful lot of betting at Cheltenham around now until the handicap weights come out. You find a lot of cases. I'm not certain, unless Corbetts Cross wins this race quite well, I don't think you're going to get a much shorter price for the Gold Cup on the day. So you're better, and certainly even L'Homme Presse, even if he wins this, he's not going to be hugely shorter on a day for the Gold Cup. And so I'll be unlikely to be betting in the Gold Cup at this particular point. But I'm looking for each way bets against Galop and Deschamps, and they'll both be on the shortlist if they run well here.
Yeah, we will certainly find out more. And Keith, we will certainly be hearing your thoughts when those all-important weights come out for the Cheltenham Festival. Of course, Keith will be back on the show. I'm sure we'll get his thoughts on all the big handicaps as we move nearer towards the big showdown in March. But after the break, we are going to be looking at Wincanton and a cracking day's racing at Haydock, where we've got a real fantastic Grand National trial to look forward to. Okay, we are going to head firstly to Wincanton, where we've got one race on ITV there. This is the BetMGM Kingwell hurdle over 2 miles, just 4 runners in this race, but a fairly quality 4 as well, led, of course, by Burdett Road, his first run since that pretty decent effort behind Lossiemouth and Constitution Hill. He's not taking on those two today. He's taking on, and he's odds on at 4 to 5 to beat Golden Ace, 5 to 2 chance. But Jeremy Scott had a bit of a difficult season. Brentford Hope, this has been his aim all season. He's 11 to 2, and Hansand at 12 to 1. Robbie, are you keen on Burdett Road? Do you want to take him on?
It's another one. It's a bit like the Jinko Blue Larry's Bar race where you've got two horses that are fairly difficult to split. I'd say Burdett Road at odds on is getting too short now for me. Like you say, Golden Ace, I mean, Jeremy Scott's not had the best of seasons, but there's been signs of a resurgence recently. And I think she's wanted to come back to 2 miles for a while. I mean, don't forget, she had the speed to beat Brighter Days Ahead less than a year ago over 2 miles. So, yeah, I think she is probably the bet at those odds. Respect Burdett Road all the while. I mean, he ran a cracker in the Christmas hurdle, but I'd like to think Golden Ace has a fair bit of untapped potential still over 2 miles. So I think at the prices, she's the one for me, James.
Yeah, of course. Cheltenham Festival winner last season beat Brighter Days Ahead, which is turning out to be pretty miraculous form looking back. Ed, where do you stand?
I'm all over Burdett Road, I think. I think he's the best horse in the race. The ratings suggest that it's quite close. But the RPI put in the Christmas hurdles is kind of miles ahead of anything else, and the track will suit. I think Sam Twiston-Davies will just go out there and won't see another horse. But as Robbie said, it is short. I don't know whether we're wanting to back it, but I think Burdett Road will get back onto the winning ways, having last won the Unibet Greatwood.
1 for Burdett Road, 1 for Golden Ace. Keith, sort us out on the tiebreaker.
Oh, yeah, well, I just thought Burdett Road was a boring old certainty, really. I mean, he's the fastest horse. He's the best horse. You know, not many can paddle through the last and still finish within 10 lengths of Constitution Hill. He's just untapped as a hurdler. Unless the ground's a lot softer than they're making out, might make it interesting. But if the ground is genuinely good to soft, come racing here. Wincanton's a speed track. I struggle to see him getting beat.
Okay, 2 shouts for Burdett Road. As we move on to Haydock, where the ground will always be interesting at Haydock in February, we move on to the 205, the Unibet Middle Distance Chase Series Veterans Handicap Chase. It's another one of these. We do enjoy talking about these on the Postcast. And we've got some familiar faces, as you would suspect, in this race. Nocte Valitus, of course, he was second in the last one, taking on the Flyer Bedgley, who won the last Middle Distance Veterans Series. I just skipped through the market, which hasn't quite been priced up with our sponsors yet. But as it stands elsewhere, we're just about looking at 3-1 Nocte Valitus, the Flyer Bedgley 7-2, Eton Kalina at 4-1, Whistle in the Dark at 6, Dubai Days at 15-2, and the Edgar Wallace at 7. Ed, we love the Middle Distance Series, don't we? 3-1 the favourite, 7-1 the outsiders. Good betting handicap, this.
Absolutely. These races, probably the listeners are getting bored of me saying it, but they're perfect because they give horses a chance to win another big pot. These qualifiers are on the way to a final at Haydock at the end of April, which is worth £100,000. So a chance to shine in the sun one more time. And it gives these 10, 11, 12-year-olds a real chance. They don't have to take on the improving horses that are younger. They can take on their own age group. And because of that, the races are generally fairly competitive. Us bookers are always saying we like kind of 8 to 10 runner races, 3-1 the field. We've only got 6 runners. Sorry, we've only got a few runners here, but it's still 3-1 the field. We've got 6 runners in total, and any of the 6 can win. As you said, the Market Race and Unibet Middle Distance qualifier holds the key. The first and second take each other on. If you look at the video, the last horse coming off the bridle was the winner, the Flyer Bedgley. Him and Nocte Valitus kind of really ramped up the race in the closing stages and went clear of the field. I can't see why the Flyer Bedgley can't win again. There's not much between them in the weights and the handicap ratings. But I was taken by the Flyer Bedgley's kind of head down attitude that day and the way he jumped. He jumps really well, which you've got to do at Haydock, haven't you? And as long as it doesn't get too soft, I don't think he'd want it too soft, but on good to soft, I think the Flyer Bedgley would be the selection. Being backed in the markets as well, 5s into 3s. So Jack Hogan can win a game.
Yeah, touched on the theme of rematches. This is the third one we really got into after Lowry's Bar, of course, and Jinko Blue, then the L'Homme Presse and Pictorian. And the Flyer Bedgley, should I say, is Ed Nicholson's selection. Keith?
Yeah, it's a smashing race, and we are getting to the sort of point of the season, I think, where some of the spring horses come out to play. And I've come down on Eaton Kalina because he ran one of those he's getting there races at Wetherby last time, when a horse can see is just coming into themselves.
Yeah.
That horse's record in February, March and April is 5 from 10, and he's not from 15 any other time of the year. He's the sort of horse that everything else is over. That he's made a career out of being the horse that turns up. And he's at his best when there's a nice long straight to run down and there's a little bit of cut on the ground. So, this is Haydock in February. That's exactly what you're getting. And he's down to his last winning mark too. So he's obviously got himself relatively well handicapped in the meantime. It is a race where I'm not particularly scared of the favourites. A little bit like the 3 o'clock at Ascot, you're looking at, you don't want to be backing anything very short because they've all got a chance. So I know, like Whistle in the Dark, I think this is an interesting bit of placement on him actually, because he ran a really good race behind Lamilos last week, back in form a little bit now. If the ground's drier than maybe we're expecting, he'd definitely be interesting. They're trying to take advantage of him being even lower than he was last week. But as I say, these veteran races, as Ed says, give a chance to horses that always turn up but maybe don't find themselves the best handicapped. Eaton Kalina, who's freshly 10, has been the embodiment of that since he was about 7. And I think he's the one I'm putting forward here.
I agree with you completely on this race, Keith, and as well, Kerry Lee's form is a lot better now. She's really hitting form, and when that's a stable to follow when they really find their feet. So Eaton Clean is my selection here as well. For those interested, I'm sure you're definitely interested in what Robbie Wilder's fancies.
Yeah, maybe I gave it away by giving the sort of. I think Whistle in the Dark could go a favourite here. He's about 6-1 at the moment. It sort of struck me watching. I wasn't really keeping on the prices last week in that Warwick race. It struck me how short Whistle in the Dark got. He sent us 7-2. He was forecast on the tissue to be like 14-1 outside. There's a lot of money for him there, and he's pulled nicely clear of the field in a good race. I mean, that was Lamilos's Cup final, I think, and he's just run well. It's interesting he's turned that quickly. 7 days later, he's £2 lower. I mean, this time last year, he was the best horse in this field by some. He started the season rate 144, running in Paddy Power Gold Cups. It just seems like he's working his way back to form. He's never really been a horse for sort of really deep winter ground. It's not going to be too bad at Haydock, I don't think. Just think he's got a lot in his favour. Off 120 for a horse who would have been given weight to these horses not that long ago. I think he has the scope to go off a lot shorter than 6-1, James.
I definitely think he'll shorten up because I think we filmed this shortly after declarations, and I think he'd have been priced up anti-post on the basis that he wouldn't run. So the fact he's turning up means...
Okay.
Well, let's hope it hangs around because I haven't yet pulled the trigger.
Well, Robbie Wilder's will be skirmishing over to his laptop now to get that on. But as we move on to the 240, the WKD Reynoldstown hurdler Grade 2, and fittingly with a sponsor, we've got a favourite in Blight, Bruce Silks in Beauport. He's looking to stepping stone towards the Grand National, 25-1 for the Grand National with Unibet after that really good third in the long walk. He sets a standard on that form, and he is your 15-8 favourite. Botox has last year's winner at 7-2. The midline, first time at this trip, 13-2. Thunder Rock at 7s. Sounds Russian at 15-2, should I say. And let's hear from Ed Nicholson. What do you like here?
Well, I'm a real Nemean Lion fan insofar as he ran in the Unibet Champion Hurdle last year, finished 6th, and he's just a really enjoyable horse since Kerry's had him. Was with Godolphin on the flat, but had severe leg problems, which is why he does all his running really in soft ground. Kerry's actually said that she kind of won't run the horse even maybe good to soft, so I'm slightly worried because it's good to soft ground, but loves the soft ground conditions because it just suits him. And I've noticed that he's been entered up in a couple of 3-mile races this season, but has always taken the other options over 2.5. And he's done well this year. I think he's probably, in terms of form, probably shown the best form of his life. Rated 131. I think his RPR rating last time was a good one. So you could argue that he's improving. I think he settles and he jumps better. The question mark here is the 3 miles, isn't it? And the soft ground. If I'm going to put Nemean Lion up, so from that point of view, I hope it's soft enough for him. But you don't really know he's going to stay 3. But he's been in such good form. I think going a little bit slower early on will probably help his jumping, and I think he's got a really good chance. He's come second at Haydock before on soft ground, albeit in a much weaker race than this. This is the Grade 2 Rendlesham, which is a brilliant race in its own right. But I think the Nemean Lion's got that touch of class where maybe a few of the others haven't. Beauport, I mean, we've been doing this podcast for a year and a half. I used to tip him up every handicap chase last year, and then he comes back over hurdles and does the business. But Beauport obviously got chances. Nigel Twiston-Davies trains a bit short, 15-8 maybe. But yeah, Nemean Lion for me, just hoping that the 3 miles and he gets the soft ground that he wants.
Yeah, Keith, before we come on to Beauport in this race, he's caught the attention of a few for the Grand National. Would he interest you for that race at all?
I think it says something about the Grand National that we're considering Beauport as a runner in it. That you'd have described him before he won the Midlands National. You'd have described him as an oaf over fences, wouldn't you? He's he is better now than he was, but I think in a Grand National of old, he wouldn't have made first features. But the way he got ridden in that 3 mile 5 race at Ascot in November, that suits your modern sort of national. Certainly doing well in a beacher or something. And it's not the worst shout you'll ever hear. As I say, I think it says a little bit more about the race than the horse. Yeah. And I'm not sure there's a huge amount of value left if he's 25s against. Look at the absolute tidal wave of McManus horses aimed at that race this year. You know, it's a tricky old race, and I think that's certainly his price. The other thing about Beauport, we're thinking of this race, is the tactics that have served him so well at Ascot the last time. You know, he's been quite forcefully ridden in that 3 mile 5 race. He got the run of the long walk when he was third. Those tactics rarely fly on the hurdles track at Haydock in the same way. So I think I'd be looking to get him beat here. And for reasons similar to what Ed stated, I think it'd be with Nemean Lion. He's always appealed as a 3 miler. He's a very hard horse to stop when he gets rolling. And that's what he's going to get here. Haydock Straight is a long straight, and that's sort of why they struggle to get a break on him from the front. But Nemean Lion, just when he gets going, he's a tough one to stop. Always appealed as a horse for this trip. So I would be going for him in an attempt to get Beauport beat.
A second shout for Nemean Lion. Are you going to complete a hat trick, Robbie?
Potentially. I'm definitely against Beauport. I thought he was flattered to finish as close as he did in the long walk hurdle. They went very slow. There wasn't a true test of stamina there. I mean, he is a strong stayer, to be fair, but I don't know. I thought there were a few horses could win this. Tipped from the Rock at the start of the week. Thought he could go well. I mean, he's got a lot of ability. This time last year, he won the Premier Chase very easily at Kelso, up to 3 miles. He's not gone over 3 miles since. But sort of, he's one of those horses that he's never been a great jumper. So I think there's more to come back over hurdles. He's only running a couple of hurdle races this season over 2.5 miles. I feel like he would have been aimed at this as sort of logical target for him. He's not going to win a stayers hurdle, but he can be a grade 2 stay on his day. I think he's interesting. Nemean Lion was another I had a very good look at the start of the week. I just worried if he might run at Wincanton or not. I think he's got a cracking chance already. He's long given the impression that 3 miles, would be quite interesting. He's arriving in good form. I thought that Windsor effort was a strong one over 2 mile 4. Don't think he wants the ground, doesn't necessarily need it to be that bad, the ground. I mean, he's won good to soft a few times. I think he should get those sort of conditions again. So having already played Thunder Rock, now most scared of Nemean Lion, and at the price, I'd be quite interested in getting involved with him as well.
Final race we look at then is the 3:15 at Haydock. This is the Oddschecker Grand National Trial Handicap Chase, where we've got a repeat of the Welsh Grand National. The top two in it, Val Dancer, the winner, and Jubilee Express, who was staying on second. We didn't see much of that race, but hopefully we'll see a good bit more of them. Val Dancer and Jubilee Express, both 5-1 joint favourites. Yeah, man, for Gavin Cromwell at 11-2. Git Maker at 6-1, and Royal Pagaille, the Haydock specialist, at 7s. Keith, this is your sort of race. I didn't know what to make of the Welsh Grand National, having been there. Being there didn't help out my chances. How on earth do we go about analysing that Welsh Grand National with a view to this?
It's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, I went into I backed the second and the third, and I went into the gloom thinking I had it, and then Val Dancer finds absolutely tons to win the race. It was especially not fun for me with the visibility as it was. I think this is a good race. It's a race full of very nearly very interesting horses. Val Dancer, I think he's had his days. £12 higher now in effect because of the way what Royal Pagai's doing in the weights. Jubilee Express, there should be in this horse at least the Eider, and if not that, then the Mongol Derby, because he almost looked too slow for the Welsh National, didn't he? He's a proper stayer, this horse. And you do have to travel in these Haydock races, even if they are over 3.5. These handicap chases at Haydock, they're a bit of an ecosystem of their own. You have to have a horse that can travel in what's usually bad ground and then can hang tough from about 3 out once everything's paddling. And that's why I think Yeman should probably be favourite. He obviously won this race last year. And this year in his 2 runs, he's been third in the Troy Town and fourth in the Thyestes, or other way around, Either way, in the frame in 2 of Ireland's best staying handicap chases. So clearly a horse that's still got a little bit to give. There's a good chance he's been aimed at this. And I suspect that Fairy House is probably the aim anyway. So they've still got 2 months to get him ready for that race after this one. So I'm not fussed about them building up to something else. He's won this race last year. He's coming back again. He's the one that I'm interested in on the day. We've talked about other horses, and I'd also mentioned Getmaker, who he's been slow to come to hand this year. I'm not backing him second time up over 3.5 at Haydock. I'm going to back him in the race later this season, but not today. Today, I think this is Yeman's day.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wonder if the money will come for him. They do sometimes do for the big Irish races, big Irish trainers when they have runners in Britain. So interesting whether Yeman does go favourite. 11-2, second favourite behind Val Dance and Jubilee Express as it stands. Robbie?
Yeah, Royal Pagai running is significant. It does obviously make a couple of horses quite badly in the weights, including the top 2 in the bet, and Val Dancer and Jubilee Express. It's not affected Yeman's mark, though. He is interesting. He won this obviously easily last year. Won't mind the quicker ground at all. I mean, he almost beat Victorino at Ascot on good ground in last December. So I think he should go well. But I just thought the price's Famous Bridge could be interesting. He's got a £12 pull with Yeman from the race last year. He unseated when going quite nicely in that race. I thought it'd have been interesting if he did stay up. Not saying he would have beaten Yeman, but I think he is weighted to still go well. He's been running quite nicely this season. Always looked like he would be worth a try at sort of 3.5 miles. He looks a thorough stayer to my mind, and first time cheap pieces, if that brings anything else out, and then could see him going quite well. He's only a £1 wrong as well. So Famous Bridge for me, James.
8-1 chance. And finally, Ed.
Yeah, agree with Robbie. Famous Bridge. I like the low handicap mark he's got. He carried 12 stone last year, I think. If I seem to remember, it was my nap of the week 12 months ago. And I thought I was going to count my money, like Robbie said. He was going really well. 9-2 joint favourite. Cheap pieces will help. Still relatively lightly raced. Has run well at Haydock's got a very good. I think he's won 2 from his 4 at Haydock. Looks likely to be, I think, better over further, as Robbie says. A lot of positives, I thought. Royal Pagal is an interesting one for so many reasons. He's 5 from 7 at Haydock, but he did run disappointingly last time on the track, didn't he? I would worry about that, but the performance before that was arguably one of his best ever. So you can't discount him. But in a handicap 164, giving away weight, it would be a hell of a performance to do it. Incidentally, Rich Ritchie's, I don't know if you noticed, he's only had 5 winners this season. I think 3 in the UK and Ireland. He's not had many winners. And Royal Pagal would be one of his favourites. But maybe, just maybe, that performance last time out told us he may be just getting a bit long in the tooth. And as for the Welsh National, as you know, James, I love Chepstow form. I love Chepstow, but they do sometimes bottom horses, that race. And the first 2, I'd kind of want to steer clear of them for a little while anyway. Obviously, they bring the best form, the best recent form into the race. But they both would have had tough races. I don't know if you saw the video, but where it all began was absolutely cruising. You could actually see him making ground on the video in the fog. And if you had to stop the race where it was, that would be the winner. And then he belted the fence and kind of went out to the right and then disappeared off your screen, was pulled up a fence later.
That was so good. He jumped 4 out on the bridle and he didn't jump 2 out.
Yeah.
Only in a Welsh National. National.
It was absolutely. When I watched it again back today, I thought, where's he gone? I had to go back and watch the video
brilliant.
3 times. But so, I mean, so he would have to have a chance. If you could just stop that race there and you said, well, what price is he to win here in this Grand National trial? And someone said 20s, you'd be lumping on. But yeah, difficult race. I love these staying chases almost as much as Keith. But I do slightly worry about the Grand National form on heavy ground when you come out next. So I'm gonna oppose the front 2 in the market and now my colours to Famous Bridges Mast.
Famous Bridge for Ed. And you mentioned there about Rich Rishi. I'm sure he'll be happy if he wins a certain Unibet sponsored race in March. And to mention Unibet, we'll have a quick word from our sponsors.
Want betting on the horses to be anything but flat? With an app that impresses every time out. You're on. Want to watch live streaming of races in the UK, Ireland and around the globe? And get a chance to win even bigger with 3 Uniboosts every day on any horses you want. Unibet, you're on.
Okay, so we will hear what the boys fancy from around the tracks. But before we do, Ed, let us know what offers you've got for this weekend.
Yeah, we'll go through them chronologically, starting at Haydock. The 115, we're in extra place. The 150, the Reynoldstown Chase, we'll just look forward to that. There's not many runners. There's no special price on or offer on available on that particular race. But the next one, the 225, the handicap hurdle, we've got an offer of 2. One is your money back second or third. If you come second or third to the winner, you'll get your money back. Please do go to the site for the full terms and conditions. And also, you can take advantage of an extra place in that race as well. Super boosting the big race at Ascot, the big handicap race at Ascot at 3 o'clock. And then the 337, the big Ascot Chase, the grade 1. We're going best industry price, which I didn't mention when I went through. So at 9 o'clock on Saturday, we will be the best price every horse in this race at any stage until the off. So there's nowhere else you should go really for the big grade 1 on Saturday at Ascot. Industry best price for the 337. And then we've got Super Boost on the Grand National Trial at Haydock at 3:15. Plenty of other offers on the day as well. So please do go to unibet.co.uk /enclosure, where we have all of the offers and access to the blogs that we have, including Nico and Nikki.
So much racing to look forward elsewhere. Keith, you got anything for us? One at Wincanton, possibly?
I do have one at Wincanton, and I'm going to surprise you with another one too, James, actually. Now, the one at Wincanton, I'm not expecting much of a price here, but I expect the Teller's Fortune to win the 4 o'clock, the 3 mile handicap chase. This horse last time, he got mugged off by the runner-up. Like, the runner-up really did get the break on him. And when that happens at Taunton, you don't tend to come back from it. He did. He was able to reel in that horse, who incidentally won his next start, in turn beating another subsequent winner. So the form's obviously decent. He's managed to, reel in a subsequent course and distance winner and did it easily. That was his first run over fences to Teller's Fortune as well. So he's obviously he's really, really unexposed. It's another sharp right-handed track, Wincanton. And yeah, he's a horse that, he's only rated 117, so he's not in these good races yet, but he might be in time. So he's definitely not finished winning this season to Teller's Fortune in the 4 o'clock at Wincanton. I'm also going to take you back to August. Who remembers double-figure temperatures, There's a horse running at Newcastle in the 655, and it's a horse called Monk's Dream. Now, it's been in my head ever since August because they made his 3-year-old reappearance in the Great St Wilfrid at Ripon. As soon as I saw it, I thought, well, what are they doing this for? There must be some reason this horse is sort of thought. And he is a horse that did have good juvenile form. Never really captured it on the turf at 3. But his 2 wins as a juvenile were both at Newcastle. So after, a few runs where he looked like he was just getting his confidence back on the turf, he had a couple of months off, and then he ran at Newcastle the other week over 5 furlongs. He was on the wing all the way through that race, never really the place to be at Newcastle. You want to be near the tip of the arrow, really. And he was still second a furlong out, and he faded away into about 7th, I think. He's down to 75 now. Sean Curran was booked up on him at the 5-day stage, so I was always fairly confident he was going to be declared. Course where he won his juvenile races, down to a mark of 75, possibly has been an all-weather horse all along, well enough regarded to get pitched into a top handicap on his first start at 3. Let's give him a chance. Monk's Dream, 655 Newcastle.
And the other one was to tell us fortune at the 4 o'clock at Wincanton. Some serious work there, Keith. I enjoyed that. I mean, I like the idea. You've been tracking horses since August. It is some effort, and I'm sure you can all track with the Racing Post tracker, but hopefully you won't need to track for our weekend naps. And let's start with you, Robbie. What is the Robbie Wilder's nap this weekend?
Yes, mate. Whistle in the dark, 205 at Haydock. Think he goes off market leader.
I am going to go for Jubilee Express. Like you, Keith, I was stunned he didn't win, and it made a pretty miserable day at Chepstow even worse that he was only just beaten, but I'm hopeful he'll be back in the 3:15 at Haydock. Jubilee Express. Ed?
Classic King in the 225, the handicap hurdle at Ascot. Enjoyed being over the hurdles last time, having had 4 runs over fences, and I still think he's ahead of the handicapper. So big price, double figure odds. My nap, Classic King.
And finally, Keith.
It was nearly Ansam, but I think the horse that I think this is the one that's likely to win and is still a wrong price. That would be Lowry's Bar in the Reynoldstown at 150 at Ascot. I think he should be up there with Django Bay, and he isn't.
Thank you very much to our panelists, Keith Melrose, Ed Nicholson, and Robbie Wilderson. Of course, to you for listening at home. If you do enjoy the shows, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe. We'll be back at our usual time at 7 p.m. on Thursday. Ahead of next week, we'll be looking at those very, very last-minute final clues for the Cheltenham Festival at Kempton, among other good races there. We'll see you then, so have a great weekend, enjoy the racing, and gamble responsibly.